It seems like there's a story every other day about a commercial vehicle, a big truck accident somewhere in the country, and makes you stop and think about how do they go about investigating those type of accidents, the highway patrol or whatever the law enforcement agency is in that area.
Yeah, commercial vehicles, trucks, tractor trailers that drive in interstate commerce across state lines are subject to the rules and regulations of the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. Those are the rules that regulate trucking companies and in particular truck drivers in terms of how many hours they can drive in a given day, in a week, how many hours can they be on duty during the day. So those are rules that the Department of Transportation for the state of Florida and the Highway Patrol are looking at probably pretty early on in a trucking crash to see if the driver is within hours of service and the other rules that apply. Well, drivers that are in interstate commerce have to have driver logs. And in fact, even drivers that aren't in interstate commerce, that drive intrastate and just within the state of Florida, a lot of the employers, trucking companies, will require them to fill out driver logs anyway, even though they may not be required to if they're driving within a so many mile radius of their home base. But those driver's logs document when the driver is on duty driving, on duty not driving, when he or she is in the sleeper berth. And from that information, it's a 24-hour graph. You can look at a 24-hour period and tell how many hours that driver's been on, how many miles he or she has driven during the day. So when the crash happens, that's one of the first things that the investigators are asking for are the driver's logs to see where the driver has been, where he's coming from, and how long he or she's been on duty.
Now, is this the driver's honor to fill out these logs properly, or do they use GPS systems? Or
yeah, they have to be filled out concurrently with the driver's workday, but more and more companies, particularly the companies that have a lot of power units, tractors or drivers, are going to a GPS tracking system that makes them more efficient. Competition in the trucking industry is largely dictated by who can get the loads moved most efficiently and for the less cost per mile. So GPS tracking devices allow dispatchers at trucking companies to know where a driver is, how fast he or she is driving, and oftentimes, not all the time unfortunately, but oftentimes that information is used against the driver's logs to make sure the logs are being filled out correctly.
So that's how they can check and just spot check even?
Yeah, the Department of Transportation officers are primarily responsible for enforcing those rules. So when you see the white car with a blue stripe down the middle stopped on the side of the road with a truck, that's typically what a Department of Transportation officer is doing. He's doing a level check on their various levels, level 1, 2, or 3 of inspections they do. Some of them are pretty comprehensive, involving weighing the truck there on the side of the road, checking the brakes to make sure the brakes are in proper working order, checking the truck from front to back to make sure that everything is working as it is and the driver's logs have been appropriately filled out.
Well, it's good to know that they're being that thorough because, boy, trucking accidents aren't just like two cars hitting one another. Often they just devastate.
Well, and that's one of the main reasons hours of service rules are in place, because in Florida and in many states, a commercial truck can weigh as much as 80,000 pounds, 40
Wow.
tons. So if a driver becomes fatigued, falls asleep at the wheel, the propensity for someone being seriously injured or killed is, as you would expect, much, much higher than if you're in an accident in a Honda Accord and fall asleep behind the wheel. Both can result in tragic consequences, but when a truck is involved, the propensity becomes much higher, and that's the primary reason we have the hours of service and rules in place.
When you talk about that much weight, it really makes you realize as a driver, you better be careful not to cut in front of those people because they can't slam on the brakes like your Honda Accord people can.
And fortunately, by a vast majority, truck drivers take their job seriously. They drive within the rules. They are conscientious of why the hours of service are in place. They drive carefully, making sure they have adequate distance to stop in front of them, because 80,000 pounds doesn't stop nearly as quickly as a Honda Accord. So most drivers take those rules very seriously. It's when those rules are broken or ignored that you have tragedy on the highways of our country from a driver falling asleep or breaking the hours of service rules.
It's a good thing for us people that are just driving our regular cars around to be aware of too. Good thought. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.